When I was a kid, sometimes when my father would come home from work, he and I would walk down to the corner grocery store. Not to buy groceries now, but to pick up any litter that was in the parking lot. Man, I hated doing that. What if my friends saw me picking up trash on the corner? Can you imagine the jokes? So Dad would pick up this trash with this long broomstick, had a nail on the end of it. He put it into this garbage bag that I was holding. And at some point I asked my mother, is this Dad's part-time job? She said he was just trying to beautify the neighborhood, just trying to clean up a bit. Wanted the place where we lived to be beautiful. And I think my father was on to something. That's something that any of us can do, whether it's in our personal or professional lives. My artistic neighborhood is classical music. I walk the streets of classical music every day. And we all know that classical music in America isn't the most inclusive of art forms. So in this podcast, we're going to try and create something more inclusive, something more beautiful for all of us. We'll share some stories and perspectives and music that has gone unnoticed. We'll experience the beauty of our diversity and the sameness of our humanity in this podcast. This is Every Voice with me, Terrance McKnight. Many cultures, many voices, one people. In this series, we're going to look at representations of Blackness in opera. It's an art form that's more than 400 years old, and it hasn't always been kind to people of my background. But before we get into that, I want to introduce you to Dr. Sharon Willis. She's an African-American composer who lives in Atlanta, and her stories are positively Black and positively captivating. Many of her operas are inspired by real-life historical figures.
I was in bed one night and I heard this story on PBS, and they were talking about this Black man on the Titanic. Well, I'm in twilight sleep, so I'm thinking that maybe I'm dreaming. This must be 2:00 in the morning. And I said, let me wake up. And they kept saying LaRoche, Joseph LaRoche. And when I heard that, I said, I'm going to look that up. That's just too incredible. I look up the name. I remember LaRoche and Joseph Philippe Le Mercier LaRoche. And when I looked him up, there's this Black man with fro. And he's married to a French woman, white, and 2 little children with curly hair. And when I see that story, I'm saying, opera, opera, story, opera. When I wrote
And when she composed the LaRoche opera, I was sure to be there. I've seen several of her operas. Dr. Willis has written 16 operas, and she often tells the stories of very successful African Americans. People love hearing these stories. They were relevant, relatable, plus the music was always wonderful with just the right amount of familiarity. People would leave the theater asking about, when's the next production? This is music from her opera, Madam C.J., about the philanthropist and activist, Madam C.J. Walker, who in the early 20th century became one of the first Black millionaires by creating hair products for Black women.
Got to move on, although I'm feeling so blue. Yes, I do. Got to move on, although I'm feeling blue. Got so much ahead, got so much more to do.
The response that audience members have given me have been very positive. Many of them had to be coerced by their neighbors or people who knew me to say, I'm coming to an opera. I don't want to come to an opera because, first of all, they're going to be singing in a language that I don't understand, and they're going to be hoo, 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 and that does not mean anything to me.
Outside of Atlanta, not many people know about Sharon Willis's operas. They weren't commissioned or performed by the big opera houses around the country. Those opera houses remain largely committed to performing works that were composed in Europe, based in Europe, or informed by white European perspectives. The few times black characters appear in those operas, the portrayals are outdated, offensive. It makes you think about what kind of culture, whose culture, those big opera companies are promoting. So I was introduced to Sharon Willis's operas during my student days at Morehouse. That was a place where it was acceptable and respectable for black men to engage in classical music. Morehouse is the only college in the country devoted to educating black men. So my alma mater is the perfect place for us to begin this exploration of old and new representations of blackness in opera. Let's go this way. It was a quiet day when we got to the music department. I was there with David Norville. He's one of the producers of the show. Almost immediately, we ran into Dr. David Morrow, who is the director of the Glee Club. How you doing, man? Good, how are you? Where can I find Dr. Morrow?
Dr. Morrow.
Oh, right in front of me, huh? Yeah. Hey, Dr. Morrow.
Hello.
I'm Terrance McKnight.
Come on.
How are you, sir? Things are well?
Very well, sir.
Good.
How are you?
I'm hanging on. Getting ready to go in here and teach one student.
Who you got?
One of the music majors doing conducting. Hey!
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Doing the conducting class. Hello.
This is Dave Norville. This is Dave Morrow.
My pleasure. Good name.
Good to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
Y'all got rehearsal today?
We do. 4 o'clock. We're getting ready to go to St. Louis. We leave tomorrow. Going to St. Louis to sing for the Black Repertoire Ensemble. They're having their gala. They've been featuring HBCU choir. So
I sang in this glee club when I was in school. Some of my closest friends sang in this glee club. We toured the country together. We sang in African and European languages. We sang with orchestras, and we performed at least one opera. Being around all these men who shared my cultural experiences was critical to me finding comfort and confidence in classical music.
Here we see the second verse.
What was so important to our learning was knowing our history and the history of this glee club. It was founded in 1911, and since that time, it's only had 3 directors and a number of pretty famous members, like Martin Luther King Jr. This music was written for the Glee Club by Dr. Uzee Brown. He's the chairman of the Division of Creative and Performing Arts at the college. Let's go down to his office so we can continue this conversation. Our first Glee Club director in the back.
That's right. That's good.
1911 to 453.
Mm-hmm.
Second Glee Club director in front of him, 53 to 87.
Right.
Dave Morrow, 87 till now. We've had 3 in 110 years.
That's right. Yeah.
That's why the tradition is so strong, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And it makes a
I
difference.
took theory from Uzee Brown. I accompanied in his voice studio. And after I got out of graduate school, he brought me back here to teach. It was in his class that I first started paying attention to opera.
There is nothing like being able to have historical context to what you do. You know where you come from. You know what you've had the experience to get to wherever you are. It's important to have that historical wisdom. Critical, I think, to being effective at doing the job, especially in a small, historically black college like Morehouse.
You know, Dave, when I think about coming back here and the fact that Martin King sang in our Glee Club,
Mm-hmm.
and that
Maynard Jackson.
Mm-hmm. And Waylon.
Remember the quartet, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Waylon was so connected to the King family and to that church. Dr. Brown connected to that family and to that church. You know, when I graduated, he told me, now that you're graduating, remember that you're representing yourself, your family, Morehouse College, and your people.
Yeah.
So the work you do, just keep in mind that you're a representation of all those things.
It doesn't matter whether you like the idea of that level of representation. It's forced upon you. It becomes, by mere fact that you have touched those things that make you associated or connected in that way, is going to connect people to you and that institution and those experiences.
Yeah, well, I think, being able to see yourself in someone, or being able to see someone as being, possibly brilliant, one has to have open eyes. And the time when Mozart was writing operas, 18th century, or Verdi in the 19th century, if you consider maybe like Black folks living in Vienna or in wherever in Western Europe, there weren't a lot of free intellectual Black folks who had equal opportunities with the white society. Mm-hmm. And so their understanding of us was sort of limited. We get 600-700 students a year that come to this college who upperclassmen are looking at, who faculty members are looking at, and who, see talent in these young men and think anything is possible. Mm-hmm. Our list of graduates is astounding, some of the accomplishments.
Sure.
But you have to be able to look someone square in the eye and think, first of all, they're human, and that there's God in them, and that there's possibility in them. And so when I think about what Western Europeans thought about Blackness, or their only sort of touch point to Blackness may have been visual art or music or theater. So in this story, what I'm looking at is some of those examples of Blackness. When we look at operas, there are some roles that were written for Moors, for Africans, for Moors. And one of the operas we wanted to talk about was in Mozart's opera, The Magic Flute. Yeah. Monostatos. Mm-hmm. And he's actually a Moor. And oftentimes this figure shows up in costume, and he's very dark skinned. And lately people have been having problems with white singers putting on makeup to become Black. But I wanted to get underneath the sort of the coloring and try to dissect what is it about this character that requires him to have dark skin.
Well, there are a number of different things that I would say about, well, first of all, about that character and that particular opera, but about the world of opera in general. It is not unlike, quite frankly, conditions of the day, of today. You can find many movies that I think, though we're getting major breaks in film, a lot of the movies will center around characters that are not very savory in terms of our community. And there is something about what that character looks like in terms of making him seem more evil and despised than not. So the circumstance of the Monostatos is not necessarily unique in the sense of what white people knew about Blacks and how they perceived representing them. And it is, this is a vile buffoon-like character. But you have to remember that a lot of the Western European composers played into that kind of scenario, not just in terms of race, but in terms of things that had to do with not only the racial divide, but human imperfection.
You're listening to Every Voice with Terrance McKnight. We'll be back in just a moment. Welcome back. Let's get back to our conversation about Monostatos, that Moor in Mozart's opera, The Magic Flute. Well, Monostatos, in his own mind and from his own lips, he embodies human imperfection. And he tells us why. Here's mezzo-soprano Rayanne Bryce Davis talking about her first experience with the Magic Flute.
So the first time I ever encountered Magic Flute, it was in Texas, and we had an opportunity that all the universities were all getting together to do one big show, and it was in English, and I didn't know anything about the opera at all. And so we had like a sing through. I had gone and just like learned all my notes. So I was sitting there happily like do, 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 do. And I remember hearing the character that was singing Monostatos, who was of course a white gentleman, who was saying, and in English, because my skin is black and ugly, blah, 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 blah. I'm black, I'm ugly, blah, blah. And I was just like, and as like the only black person in the room, I like looked around like, is everybody equally appalled? And like everybody was just pleasantly smiling and looking down at their scores and like there's nothing wrong here. And I was like, what the freak is happening?
You gotta laugh to keep from crying sometimes. Paul Laurence Dunbar said it this way: we wear the mask that grins and lies. It hides our cheeks and shades our eyes. This debt we pay to human guile. With torn and bleeding hearts we smile. And mouth with myriad subtleties. Why should the world be overwise in counting all our tears and sighs? Nay, let them only see us while we wear the mask. We smile, but O great Christ, our cries to thee from tortured souls arise. We sing, but oh, the clay is vile. But let the world dream otherwise. We wear the mask. What makes Monostatos imperfect in this opera was something he has no control over. His skin color. It also casts him into slavery. Oh, and it gets worse. Self-loathing Monostatos acts out in this opera. Some of the stereotypes that we've come to despise, reject, expect, show up year after year around the world in this opera. We're going to talk about it in the next episode. Well, this is Every Voice from WQXR. We interrogate the culture of our classical music, and we look at ways to make it beautiful for all of us. I'm Terrance McKnight. I'll see you next time. This episode of Every Voice with Terrance McKnight was produced by David Norville. Our research team includes Ariel Elizabeth Davis, Pranati Diwakar, Ian George, Jasmine O'Geist. This episode, sound design and engineering is by Sapir Rosenblatt. Our original music was composed by Brother Jeremy Thomas and featured harpist Dr. Ashley Jackson. Our project manager is Natalia Ramirez, and our executive producer is Tony Phillips. Elizabeth Nonamaker is the executive producer for WQXR Podcasts, and Ed Yim is the chief content officer at WQXR. This project is supported in part by the National Endowment for the Arts. You can find more information on the web at arts.gov. If you enjoyed this episode, please take the time to rate it and review it, and review us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. Thanks for listening. Tune in next week. We'll see you next time. Makutika wakansa muko, bata wapele.